it's Melanie. Welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to do my top 5 books of 2017. So stay tuned. Okay, so I thought I'd do something a little bit different and show you my top 5 books that I just loved in 2017. So I gave all of these books 5 stars because I just love them so much. And these are in no particular order, just kind of how I stack them up from biggest to smallest, I guess. Or in this case, I'll be going backwards from smallest to largest. Let's get started. Okay, so the first book on my stack is Macbeth, #Killing It by William Shakespeare and Courtney Carbone. This book I read in like 40 minutes, something like that. And I was laughing my head off the entire time. It was so freaking funny. If you haven't read this, you definitely should. It's so cute. Okay, so it's all like text and emojis and notepads and emails and that kind of thing. But it's actually the story of Macbeth. And this will give you kind of an idea. And we have stuff like here's like the notepads. #battle selfie. Things like that. It was really, really entertaining. I actually really do enjoy William Shakespeare, and I enjoy the actual plays, but this was such a fun, quick take on the whole story, and it was highly amusing, and I really recommend it. I even got Xander to read this. Okay, so next up we have Every Time a Bell Rings by Carmel Harrington. And, well, I do remember that I actually read this around Christmas time. This was in a Once Upon a Time book club special Christmas edition box. And this is a retelling of It's a Wonderful Life, which is my all-time favorite Christmas movie. I love It's a Wonderful Life so much. And this was such a good retelling of it, but it's a very different story, but it does have that It's a Wonderful Life feel to it. And it's about a black girl growing up in Ireland, where there's not a lot of black people. And she is a foster kid and growing up in the system, and she's picked on and she's bullied. And then one day she's put with the perfect foster mom for her, and she meets a boy that's also in the foster system, but he's only there temporarily, whereas she's long-term. They make the best of friends, and then later in life they fall in love, and it's such a sweet love story. They fall in love, they get married, and they decide that they want to foster kids of their own. And everything's going great and wonderful, and then a few things happen, and all of a sudden it's no longer such a wonderful life. And that's when the whole It's a Wonderful Life feel comes in, and she gets to see what life would be like if she never existed. And it's so good. I laughed, I cried, I fell in love. It was amazing, and love this book. Okay, so the next book is actually part of a series, and I gave the entire series 5 stars. I loved it so much. And that is the Gemma Doyle series by Libba Bray. And so I just have here A Great and Terrible Beauty. This is the first book in the series, or the first book in the trilogy. And I actually remember when I read this one, I was listening to the audiobook, and I started listening to this on Halloween. So while the kids were walking around and trick-or-treating, I was following behind with my earbuds in and listening to this, and it was a great kind of spooky feel to it. And it's about this girl named Gemma Doyle who has this ability to travel between these realms. And this is set in the Victorian age, and she is sent to this finishing school that her mother also went to. And while she's there, she starts learning things about her mom and about herself and about the Order, which is this powerful group of women that control the magic of these realms. And Gemma is, I guess, chosen to be a part of this and is given the gifts needed. And it's just a really cool story, and I highly recommend it. I loved it. Oh, and yes, I'm sure reading the physical book is amazing because it's a really, really good story. But the audiobook, oh my gosh, the narrator for this audiobook is so freaking fantastic. She's like a full cast with just one person. It's amazing. Like, she does all of these different voices, but honestly, you can't tell that it's not different people. She's that good. Okay, I'll switch those two up because I want to save my absolute favorite for last. Okay, so the fourth book that I have is Kavall by Stephanie Garber, and I love this book so much. Like, I never knew what was coming next, and I screamed at this book, I yelled at this book, I laughed at this book, I cried a few times at this book. I remember reading one particular chapter, and I was like, okay. So I finished the chapter, and I turned the page, and then I'm like, wait, what? And had to go back and reread because I was just like, did that actually just happen? Yeah. Loved this book. So this is about two sisters, Scarlett and Tella, and they have always wanted to go to this mystical event called Kavall, but they've never been able to get there. And now they've got a special invitation to go to Kavall, and it's on this private island, and Kavall is run by a man named Legend. In Kavall, there's always some kind of mystery that you have to solve in order to win the prize. And in this case, at the very beginning of Kavall, Tella, Scarlett's sister, is kind of kidnapped, and the mystery that you have to solve is finding Tella. And the prize is Legend will grant you a wish, and you can wish for anything. But you never know what's real and what's not, what's a dream and what's reality, what's fantasy and what's not. And you never know really who to trust, or even if you can trust your own eyes, because nothing is quite what it seems in Kavall. And it was so good. And I'm so looking forward to Legendary, which is coming out this year. It comes out in May, and that is definitely the book that I am most excited for 2018. Okay, so last but certainly not least is my absolute favorite book of 2017. I can't rave about this book enough. I've told, I think, everybody I can think of about this book. I don't know that I'll ever be able to forget this book. It was just touched me so much. And that is a semi-definitive list of worst nightmares by Crystal Sutherland. I also remember when I read this one, and it was during Kayla over at Books and Lala's Spookathon. And I picked it up just because one of the challenges was to read a book based on one of your childhood fears. And for me, one of my childhood fears was, well, claustrophobia, enclosed spaces, and also bugs. Terrified of bugs. And both of those things I'm still very much afraid of. And so I went looking for a book because I didn't have anything that I knew of that covered either of those topics. And I really didn't want to get anything bug related just because I figured that would actually give me nightmares. So I found this and I was like, okay, this is full of fears. And it sounded like a super cute book. It's about this girl named Esther who believes that her entire family is cursed to die at the hands of their worst fear. And so she's kind of made it her mission in life to not do anything that is fear-inducing so that this curse won't get her. And her whole family has, you know, some kind of all-consuming fear that's ruined their lives and killed many people in her family. So her mother's afraid of bad luck, her brother's afraid of the dark, her father's an agoraphobe, and not only will he not leave the house, but he won't leave the basement. And her grandfather's afraid of water. So she's deemed it necessary to avoid anything that is fear-inducing. So if any time in her life she starts to do something and it's a little bit frightening, she stops what she's doing and she adds it to her list. And she has this whole list, a semi-definitive list of worst nightmares, of things that could potentially become her greatest fear. And so she puts it on the list and she avoids it forever. So, because she believes that if she never experiences it again, she doesn't have to worry about the fear. And then she meets up with an old friend from, I think, elementary school, and his name's Jonah. And he is trying to help her overcome all of these fears. And he goes through like each different fear on her list and tries to kind of push her beyond that fear and get her to do something to conquer that fear. And I can tell you, when she tried to conquer the fear of small spaces, okay, I had to actually put the book down a couple of times because I was like hyperventilating. My heart was beating out of my chest. I was just like, I can't take this, because I felt the walls closing in on me because I'm so claustrophobic. And so reading that was very triggering to me. But after I calmed down, I came back to it, and it was written so amazingly well that parts of it, yes, are this light, fluffy book that I thought I was going to get. But there's so much more to it than that. It delves into a whole lot of mental illnesses. And this girl and her whole family, they suffer from a lot of mental illness. Also, Jonah has his own issues. Not necessarily mental illness, but he's got his own family issues. There's just so much going on in this book that there's the light, fluffy layer, but there's a lot of depth to this book. There's so many different layers, and it touches on so many different topics. And there were a few times that I teared up, and there were a couple of times that I had to put the book down and just bawl my eyes out. I cried so much reading this book, and I actually feel myself tearing up a little just thinking about this book. It was so amazing, and I practically shout this book from the rooftops to anybody and everybody. I love it so much, and I highly recommend that everybody read this book. And I'm definitely going to go and find more books by this author because she's amazing. Alright, well, that's my top 5 of 2017. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time,